You know how it is, you're like putting in all this work, maybe grinding through flashcards, watching English
Yeah,
videos.
doing all the things you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And you're expecting to feel more fluent, right? But then when you actually need to speak, it's like your brain just freezes up, gets stuck.
Uh-huh. Like the words are just out of reach.
That frustration, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've
Yeah.
looked at some really smart approaches.
We have.
And our goal in this deep dive is to pull out those genuine techniques, the professional tricks, really, for speaking English smoothly, confidently,
Naturally.
naturally. The kind of stuff that can be a real game changer compared to just, memorizing endless lists of words.
Right.
Think of this as your shortcut to finally feeling that flow.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating looking at the material is this really consistent message.
Yeah,
True fluency isn't just about knowing more words.
it's not.
Not primarily, no. It's much more about how quickly you can access them, how fast you can respond.
Okay, so let's unpack that first big idea then. Strengthening your reflexes. Or as the source calls it, response training.
Exactly.
So it's not just vocabulary size, it's about shrinking that time gap, right? Between hearing something and actually replying.
Precisely. Fluency, in this context, is really about cutting down that hesitation. And this article we looked at, it puts response training front and center.
Okay.
They give a really practical example. I think it'll click for a lot of people. Think about a simple question like, what do you do?
Uh-huh.
For someone who's fluent, the answer is, I work in finance or I'm studying psychology. It comes out instantly.
Like no mental gymnastics.
Almost no conscious thought. It's automatic, no searching, no translating in your head.
Okay, so it's automatic. And the source gives a really concrete way to build that automaticity.
Yeah, it does. It suggests practicing with just like 10 common everyday questions every single morning.
10 questions. Like what kind of questions?
Things you get asked all the time. How are you? What did you do today? Where are you from? That kind of thing.
Okay, daily use stuff.
Exactly. And you drill them like a musician practicing scales. Or the article uses the analogy of a tennis serve.
Ah, okay. Repetition builds muscle memory.
That's the idea. Brain muscle memory for those basic interactions.
So focusing on these really frequent exchanges, it's like you're building these little mental shortcuts.
You got it. Pre-programmed responses for situations you hit all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to actually feel more fluent,
Yeah, yeah. In those moments where you don't have to consciously piece every single word together.
Right. It just flows.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's move on. There was another technique that really stood out to me. Building sentence templates.
Oh, yeah. This one's key.
Instead of just learning piles of individual words, right? It's like learning to build with bigger blocks.
That's a great way to put it. The material we looked at really emphasizes that skilled speakers often think in patterns, these sort of ready-made structures they can just adapt.
And they give some examples.
Yeah, really useful ones like, I'd rather than you,
Okay.
or I've been meaning to. These are high-frequency templates, things native speakers use all the time.
Right. So you learn the whole chunk I'd rather than, and then you just slot your own stuff in.
Exactly, whatever you want to compare.
Yeah.
The article suggests learning maybe 30 or so of these really common ones.
30 templates. That seems doable.
It is. And the power of this is it takes the vocabulary you already have and makes it active, turns it into real communication.
So you're not just like listing words, you're actually building sentences quickly.
Right. And naturally, you start sounding more fluent because you're using these common linguistic building blocks. Not so robotic, maybe.
Yeah. Less like you're reading from a textbook.
Definitely.
Okay, this next idea, delayed translation. This is fascinating because I think a lot of us do that immediate translation thing in our heads. I know I do.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like the natural thing to do. But the source material points out that this immediate mental back and forth, it can actually be a huge barrier.
How so?
Well, it creates this kind of cognitive traffic jam, right?
Yeah.
You're constantly switching gears between languages. It slows you down.
Okay, so what's the fix? Delayed translation.
That's the solution they propose, yeah. The technique is you listen to a short bit of English, could be audio, could be video, and then you consciously wait, just for maybe 3 or 4 seconds.
Wait, before doing what?
Before you try to translate it in your head. Or even think about how you'd reply. That little pause,
Yeah.
that's the crucial bit.
Why? What does the pause do?
Well, that brief delay kind of forces your brain to start processing the English directly, to engage with it on its own terms.
Ah, so you're building like English to English pathways.
Exactly. The article calls it building English to English thinking muscles. You start understanding the meaning in English without that automatic jump back to your native language.
It probably feels weird at first.
It might, yeah, a little unnatural. But the source suggests you could see a pretty noticeable jump in your comprehension speed after just like a week of trying this consistently.
Wow, okay. Retraining the brain's default.
Sort of, yeah.
That's really insightful. Okay, let's talk about input, what we're actually listening to and watching. The source had some clear advice here for people aiming higher, right?
Yes, pretty direct advice. Basically, if you want to speak more like a native speaker, you need to start consuming content made for native speakers.
So move beyond the simplified learner stuff.
Exactly. Time to graduate from those. The recommendation is to immerse yourself in authentic material, things like interviews, panel discussions.
Even stand-up comedy?
Yeah, stand-up comedy. But crucially, use subtitles, at least initially, to help you follow along.
Okay, subtitles on first. And then there was this triple method they mentioned for really working with these clips. Sounds intense.
It's definitely an active approach.
Yeah.
So first watch, subtitles on. Just get the meaning, understand what's being said.
Got it.
Second watch, subtitles off. Now you're really challenging your listening comprehension, purely by ear.
Okay, makes sense.
And the third time, that's for shadowing.
Shadowing. You mean speaking along with it?
Exactly. Trying to mimic the speaker, their pronunciation, the rhythm, the intonation, everything. The source emphasizes that this method hits comprehension, listening, and speaking all at once. It's really holistic.
Yeah, sounds like a powerful workout, though. Needs focus.
It does, but potentially high reward.
Okay, so we're taking in more advanced English. But the source also hammered home the importance of actively producing the language. Forced output, they called it.
Yes, critical point. So many learners spend loads of time on input, listening, reading, but not nearly enough on output.
Yeah.
Speaking, writing,
And the fastest progress comes from?
from actually using the language.
Yeah.
Producing it. And they offer this really clever, simple exercise for that, the 90-second drill.
90 seconds. Tell me more. How does that work?
Super simple. You just set a timer for 90 seconds,
Right.
pick a random object nearby, anything, a pen, a plant, whatever,
Okay.
and you just describe it out loud in as much detail as you possibly can within that 90 seconds.
Oh, like the cup example they gave.
Exactly. This cup is ceramic, it's white on the outside, slightly chipped on the rim, holds about 300 milliliters. Just keep talking, describing.
What's the benefit there?
Well, you're training multiple things at once. Your fluency, just getting words out smoothly.
Yeah.
Your accuracy, trying to use correct grammar and vocabulary. And your descriptive skills.
And you don't need a partner?
Nope. Just you, the object, and the timer. It forces that active recall and production, which really strengthens those neural pathways
Right.
way more than just passively knowing the word cup.
That sounds really practical. Low pressure, too. Okay, building on that, actually simulating real conversations.
Exactly. Taking that individual practice and getting ready for the real world. The source suggests using AI tools.
Language learning apps.
Yeah, or even just recording voice notes. Like you record yourself asking a question, then you record yourself answering it. A two-sided conversation.
And they gave examples, like booking things.
Yeah. Common scenarios. Booking an appointment. Hi, can I book a time? Yeah. Sure. What works for you?
Yeah.
Or practicing parts of a job interview, ordering food, making a phone call.
Stuff you actually have to do.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Situations you encounter. It helps build those practical speaking reflexes. It's different from just knowing grammar rules from a book, isn't it?
Totally different. It's applied knowledge.
Right.
Now, this next point. Diagnosing your own weak spots. I suspect a lot of us skip this step.
I think you're right. The source points out that many learners just practice, but they don't really stop to figure out what specifically needs work.
So how do they suggest we do that?
They recommend recording yourself just once a week. Maybe record a 2-minute audio clip of yourself just talking in English about your week.
Okay, a weekly recording.
And then this is the crucial part. You listen back.
Yeah.
Really listen. With a notebook.
Looking for what?
Looking for those little glitches. Hesitations, repeated words, grammar mistakes you catch, pronunciation errors that kind of jump out at you.
Your correction zones, as they put it.
Exactly. Those are the specific things you then need to consciously focus your practice on for the next week.
Ah, so it creates a feedback loop.
A really targeted feedback loop, like being your own language coach, in a way. Laser-focused practice.
That makes so much sense. Pinpointing where to put your energy. Okay, now, fluency isn't just words, it's the music, right? Stress and rhythm.
Definitely. And this is moving into more advanced territory, but it's so important for sounding natural and, frankly, for being easily understood.
How so?
Native speakers use sentence stress, rhythm, pitch, all that stuff in very specific ways. It carries meaning.
They had that great example sentence.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say she stole the money.
Right. Stress I.
Implies someone else said it.
Stress say.
Implies maybe you wrote it or thought it.
Stress she.
Implies someone else stole it. Stress stole. Implies she maybe borrowed it. Stress money.
Yeah.
Implies she stole something else.
Wow. Same words, totally different meanings, just based on the stress.
Exactly. Mastering that kind of intonation control. That's a huge part of sounding genuinely fluent. It's about the flow, the musicality. It's how native speakers pick up nuance beyond just the dictionary definitions.
That's a really subtle but powerful point.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. The idea that we don't need huge study blocks. Microbursts. I like the sound of that.
Me too. It feels much more achievable, doesn't it? It's a really practical approach, especially if you're busy.
So ditch the marathon study sessions.
Well, the idea is that instead of trying to cram, say, 2 hours in one go, which can feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
you sprinkle these short bursts of English throughout your day. Maybe 6 to 8 little sessions.
Okay, give me some examples. What does a microburst look like?
Could be anything, really. Like listening to a 5-minute English podcast while you make breakfast. Doing a quick 2-minute shadowing exercise on your lunch break. Maybe just talking to yourself in English for a couple of minutes while you're waiting for the kettle to boil.
Little and often.
Exactly. And what's really encouraging is the science backs this up. Research actually shows that these short, spaced-out learning sessions are often more effective for memory and retention than one long slog.
That's fantastic news. Makes it feel much less daunting.
Definitely.
And finally, the last technique they highlighted, tracking progress with reflection prompts. It's not just about doing the work, but thinking about it too.
Precisely. Being mindful, being intentional. The recommendation is simple. Set aside a little time each week, maybe on a Sunday,
Okay.
and answer 3 specific questions. In English, ideally.
What are the questions?
1, what did I learn this week? 2, what was difficult this week? And 3, what improved this week?
Learn, difficult, improved. Got it. Like a mini self-assessment.
Exactly. And it does a few things. It obviously helps you see your progress, which is motivating, but it also builds self-awareness. You really pinpoint your challenges and successes.
Right.
It helps you stay consistent. And interestingly, it also helps your brain kind of consolidate and organize the language you're learning, making sense of it all.
So it's part of the learning process itself, not just looking back.
Very much so. It helps you plan your next steps, too.
So looking back at all 10 of these, response training, templates, delayed translation, input, output, simulation, diagnosis, rhythm, microbursts, reflection.
Oh,
Wow.
it's a lot, but it fits together.
Yeah, it feels like a system. And
Yes.
the big message seems to be, you don't need perfection right now. Consistency is the thing.
Absolutely.
And it's maybe less about cramming more vocabulary and more about learning to use what you already know flexibly, confidently.
Repeatedly.
Right. Fluency, according to this material, isn't some magic gift. It's a learnable system.
And that's really empowering, I think. It puts the control back in the learner's hands. It's about using these smart strategies to make your learning more effective.
More effective and hopefully more rewarding in the end.
Exactly.
So thinking about all 10 of these really practical techniques we've just unpacked, from strengthening those quick responses right through to that weekly reflection, I've been meaning to ask you, our listener, considering where you are right now with your English, what single shift? If you could change just one thing in your learning habits based on this, what do you think would make the biggest difference for you right now?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah, take a moment. Think about how these ideas might fit into your own journey. What's the one thing you could maybe start doing differently today? We really hope this deep dive has given you some solid, actionable strategies, something to help you move past feeling stuck and start really speaking English with more flow, more confidence.
There's definitely more depth to explore in each of these.
Oh, for sure. Perhaps that's a conversation for another time.